This morning. And thank you all for being here at Numen Lumen, a Thursday inspiration, where this is the second to last time this academic year that we will wrestle with the theme of reconciling lives, personal stories in the search for multi-faith understanding. And it's my joy today to introduce to you all Charity Johansson, who is a professor of physical therapy at Elon School of Health Sciences, also a certified geriatric clinical specialist. And one other thing I lift up about Charity is she and Peter Felton just had a book published, Transforming Students, Fulfilling the Promise of Higher Education. So that Charity doesn't have to plug it, I will. And at this point, I want to introduce to you and invite Charity up to speak. The title of her talk is Having Room for Everything. So welcome, Charity. Thank you.
So I was asked to write, to share a personal story about difference in my life and my journey of faith. And it proved to be a surprisingly challenging task. It took me down a long path of how I grew up and choices I made, but most of all, it brought up to me the amazing love-hate relationship that I think maybe we all have with difference. We want to be different, unique. Not too different, that would be scary. We know diversity is good for us, but differences make us uneasy, especially social differences. And as much as I've consciously worked on this in my adult life, I still struggle with this every single day. I grew up attending the Moravian Church, which has a strong history of openness and tolerance. In essentials, unity. In non-essentials, liberty. In all things, love. Meanwhile, at home, there was a strong fundamentalist Baptist mentality, which was interpreted in a particularly rigid and punitive way, which made for some interesting juxtapositions. And while the existence of God was never my stumbling block, I struggled a lot with how to connect to that God. Along the way, I've sampled a lot of approaches, some of which I think would definitely surprise some of my colleagues. But I've come to a practice that I feel works for me, and that is passage meditation, as taught by Eknath Ezeruan. A practice that he says, if you're a Christian, will make you a better Christian. If you're a Jew, will make you a better Jew. If you're an atheist, will make you a better atheist. So for over 10 years now, I've spent 30 minutes nearly every morning quieting my mind and allowing the words of a positive and inspiring passage, like the prayer of St. Francis, for example, to drop word by word into my being. And I want to share a couple of things I've come to in this process. One is a truth as I see it, and the other is a tool. Long ago, I decided that there are 3 levels to our evolution. The first and the third look the same from the outside, but going through the second level changes the nature of the third. So, an example, at a very early age, we're taught manners. You say please, you say thank you say I'm sorry. Even if you don't mean it, you say those things. That's level 1. At level 2, however, we come to a point where we say that's hypocrisy. If I don't feel sorry, I shouldn't say I'm sorry. If I don't feel thankful, I shouldn't say I'm thankful. I'm not going to act a way I don't feel. But eventually, most of us come to understand the value of gestures, of the more complex connectedness that can be conveyed in our simple social rituals. And once again, we have manners. From the outside, you may not be able to tell the difference between levels 1 and 3, but interiorly, they're worlds apart. And I think of difference in the same way. When we're young, we're driven socially and neurologically to become like those around us, imprinting like ducklings. It keeps us safe. But eventually, we need to differentiate ourselves in order to discover who we really are. There's a time in our lives when differences are how we establish our identity. Do I agree with my parents about this or not? Are these friends enough like me that I want to hang around with them? Who am I is established and answered in a social context by deciding how we are like and different from the people around us. A couple of summers ago, I had a particularly hard time sharing the house with my teenage daughter home from college. Apparently, I could do nothing right. If we were watching something on television and she got up to go into the kitchen, it was super annoying if I paused the show. She corrected the way I loaded the dishwasher. And in case you didn't know, I put too many ingredients in a salad. So just before I was ready to slip into her room at night and pinch her little head off while she slept, I remembered that her job at that age is to differentiate from me, to decide who she is independent of me. And maybe we were so much alike that maybe she had to do it at the salad level, and that was okay. So that's that second level of differentiation. Then comes the third level, finding the ways that we're the same. And I've come to believe that this is one of our fundamental jobs during our time on this planet, to find that oneness again. So how do we get to that third level? We know that in ecological realms and even in our physiology, diversity is essential for our health. But interestingly enough, socially, we are wired to resist differences. The lower limbic system cares about our immediate survival. The amygdala is where the heart of our fight, flight, fright mechanism resides. The brain scans the environment for anything different, and when it finds something, it alerts the security system. And it's the amygdala's job to present us with the worst-case scenario so that we can prepare. Separating ourselves from people who are different from us, therefore, can make us feel more secure. Sometimes we watch television shows about people whose degree of difference makes us feel better about ourselves. Hoarders, cops, Dr. Phil, The Bachelor, My Strange Addiction. We separate ourselves by labeling other people, making jokes about them, or simply avoiding them. There's a cashier at a store I frequent who makes me uncomfortable. I'm Southern, but this woman is way too friendly and involved, even for me. I don't want to discuss what I'm going to make with every grocery item in my cart. And for Hans, every 30 seconds is over my limit. Just ring up my groceries and let me go home. Bless her heart. So, we're neurologically programmed to be suspicious of differences. We feel safer with people we deem to be like ourselves. Then how do we get to that third level? Fortunately, we also have the prefrontal cortex of the brain, where decision-making and problem-solving take place, to sort through those scenarios and decide what's a real threat and how best to respond. The prefrontal cortex is also where compassion and empathy, gratitude and forgiveness reside. And here's another cool reality. Activating one neurological response system inhibits the other. When we're activating our lower limbic systems, we inhibit the prefrontal cortex and vice versa. So when we can't find our keys and we respond by stressing out, we are actually inhibiting our ability to find our keys, to think about where they might actually be. Conversely, when we choose to focus on gratitude or forgiveness, for example, we deactivate the perception of threat in something that is different from ourselves. And what functional MRIs have recently shown us is that meditating on a compassionate image or phrase not only generates activity in the prefrontal part of the brain, but that over time it lays down additional gray matter. We can literally increase that part of who we are. I believe our ability to make choices is perhaps our most powerful creative and divine tool. Every choice is a creation. We create and recreate our world every day with our choices. How we choose to respond to someone who's rude or selfish, who cuts us off in traffic, even how we choose to respond to ourselves when we make a mistake or when we've been rude or selfish. And here's the tool that I found particularly helpful in this regard, and that is overcoming our likes and our dislikes. What we like and dislike is the key element in differentiating, in establishing our identities. It's great for level 2. To get to level 3, however, it's an interesting experiment to let go of those likes and dislikes. Think about how often they dictate our choices, our actions, and therefore our complete life experiences. Learning to like different foods is a simple place to start. Stopping my internal voice when it judges what other people are wearing or how they're going about a task like driving. I don't know, somehow my spiritual lessons always seem to happen behind the wheel. The really tough part for me, though, has to do with people I like and don't like. Instead of separating myself from them, I could choose to draw closer. I could choose to spend time with someone I don't like. I could choose that line at the grocery store, that cashier, and approach her with compassion and some humility. Recently, one of the passages I chose for meditation was Holding to the Constant by Lao Tzu. It begins, "Break into the peace within, hold attention in silence, and in the world outside you will ably master the 10,000 things. All things rise and flourish, then go back to their roots. Seeing this return brings true rest where you discover who you really are. Knowing who you are, you will find the constant. Those who lack harmony with the constant court danger, but those who have it gain new vision. They act with compassion, and within themselves they find room for everything." It goes on, but for some reason that phrase, "find room for everything," caught me. What did that mean? What does that mean for me? According to Lao Tzu, it seems to have something to do with discovering who I really am. And I've come to think Lao Tzu actually knew something of the 3 levels and something about differences. When I'm free of the constraints of my likes and dislikes, when I can let go of my judgments that put walls between me and other people, when I don't need to cling to superficial similarities to be safe, but can let go into the safety of knowing that we are all connected in a deep and wonderful way, then I will have room for everything. Thank you.